Sean Teare, who just won one of the most closely watched local races from Super Tuesday, the race for the Democratic primary for Harris County District Attorney. Sean defeated incumbent Kim Ogg, 75% of the vote to her 25%. And Sean is here this morning, fresh off a celebratory night. You did say you turned in a little early, though, huh?
I did. I was excited about coming here.
Yeah, well, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming in today. Let's start right off the bat. What are some of the biggest issues / problems that you really want to attack if and when you get into this office?
Yeah, the first one is how we accept charges. We've got to change the way that we do that so that we can be more equitable. We can be better about the charges that we accept from the police, but also we need to be a resource to the police officers on the street. And that's not happening right now in our intake division. So that's the very first thing that I'm going to change.
And how do you address those? What kinds of specific changes do you want to make to hit those points?
Yeah, well, first of all, we need to bring back experienced prosecutors into that role. Experienced prosecutors that are answering the phone, that are advising police on what kind of evidence we need for cases before we file them, and whether or not we actually should file a case. And then compiling that with diversion programs before we charge people is going to really open up our ability to prosecute violent criminals successfully.
Staffing is definitely an issue, huh?
It is. And I think one of the first things you have to do is create an environment where people want to stay, where people want to work there, and empower them to follow their oath, which is to see that justice is done in every case. And we're going to do that day one. You
were quoted as saying you want to create an empathetic justice system. So the question I have is, how do you sort of balance that with being tough on crime? Tough and empathetic. It's not an easy thing.
Actually, I think it is pretty easy. I think that what we have to do is not create the next generation of violent criminals by giving lower level offenders a criminal record when they don't need it, but also holding the people that are preying on our communities accountable, removing them from society, and doing it successfully. So I think we can be both smart and tough on crime at the same time.
Okay. Talk about your upcoming opponent, Dan Simons. What makes you different? What makes you a better choice come November?
Well, I think that experience is probably the most glaring difference. I have tried 50 felony trials. I've dealt with multiple murders, capital murders, intoxication manslaughters. That's not in his background. He has not been a felony prosecutor handling violent crimes really ever in his career. But, you know, what we're going to do is just see what the messaging is. We haven't heard from him yet in really any meaningful way. But the message that I have isn't going to change. The message I have is that we're going to be smart on crime. We're going to prosecute violent offenders, and we're going to do it the right way.
You have faced some criticism with your work with Dan Cogdell's law firm doing criminal defense. That work, in some respects, I guess, directly conflicts with what a prosecutor can do. How do you respond to that criminal work makes you soft on crime?
That's just not accurate. They're really two sides of the same coin. And working with someone that's an icon like Dan Cogdell, truly one of the most reputable and renowned defense attorneys in the country, has been eye-opening to me. It's been a real learning experience over the last year. But all it's done, I think, is make me a better prosecutor going forward, because you have to understand both sides of any case in order to do the right thing.
Yeah, and you've worked in various places in law on sort of both sides of that. Talk about being a Houstonian, talking about growing up in Harris County and how that sort of uniquely prepares you for this job.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a native Houstonian, born and raised here. Went to St. Thomas High School, went to U of H undergrad and law school. I really haven't left and have no intention of doing it. I'm getting to raise my 4 kids in basically the same neighborhood that I grew up in. This is my home. This has always been my home. It always will be. It's really surreal for me to be able to be in this position, in a position of leadership in the city that I love.
I don't know, you've talked about how much work the campaign is, but really the real work begins if and when you get to that office.
That's exactly
so
right.
Back to where we started, top priority, day one, what do you think it's going to be?
It's got to be 2, I think.
Okay.
Fixing the intake system and fixing the morale, working with the people in that office to empower them, to let them follow their oath and make decisions. We're going to see that really affect our backlog and the ability to prosecute crimes the right way.
Yeah, and I think everybody in Houston knows we got a lot of catching up to do. So
Yes, we do.
wish you the best of luck. Sean Teare with
thank
us
you.
this morning exclusively on KPRC 2 News Today at 10.